Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first Morris-Jumel lunch break lecture. We will begin momentarily.
Okay. So hello everyone and welcome to, my name is Meg Lynch and I have been an educator at the Morris-Jumel Mansion since 2017. Welcome to our very first lunch break lecture here at the virtual iteration of the Morris-Jumel Mansion. So before we dive into our first lecture, which is going to cover early American transformers, Megan Burns is going to go over some housekeeping with you.
Okay. Thank you, Meg. Hello again, everyone. My name is Megan Burns, and I'm the programs manager at Morris-Jumel Mansion. Yes, both of us are named Megan, just to keep you on your toes. I will be moderating Meg's program today. And before we get started, I'd like to review the format for today's program and some of our Zoom guidelines. So, full disclosure, today's lecture is being recorded. So if you do not wish to be recorded, actually, Meg, can you click on the slide? Like enlarge it?
Oh, sorry, are you not seeing that?
It's minimized, yeah. So if you do not wish to be recorded, you may turn off your video using the bottom navigation bar, or you may exit the lecture. If you choose to stay in this Zoom meeting with your video on, you are giving your consent to be recorded. Also, the format for today's lecture will include about 20 minutes of Meg sharing her insights on the mansion's early transformer furniture. So during her portion of the program, you, the audience members, will be muted. However, I will be monitoring the chat box, and I encourage you to communicate with both of us via the chat box, again, located at the bottom navigation menu, as well as using the reaction symbol found there as well. We will pause periodically to share some of your questions during her presentation, and then at the conclusion, we will open it up for about 10 to 15 minutes of general discussion and an open Q&A with everyone. Okay, so Meg, I'm just letting a few more people into our session, and when you are ready, please begin.
How's my PowerPoint, Megan?
It's good. I can actually see the participants box, so you may want to.
That's actually from our screensaver.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Megan. Before we dive into today's lecture about early transformers, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the history of the house for any of you who've not had a chance to visit Manhattan's oldest residence. So the Morris-Jumel Mansion was built as a summer home in 1765 for retired British Colonel Roger Morris and his wife Mary Phillips Morris. The house features what is believed to be one of the oldest octagon rooms in America. The Morrises owns the land from river to river from approximately 140th to 180th Street in northern Manhattan, which was considered quite rural at the time. As loyalists, they abandoned the property when the revolution began. In the fall of 1776, the house was confiscated by George Washington and served as his headquarters for 5 weeks. The Battle of Harlem Heights was actually fought during this time. Then the British and Hessian troops that occupied the house as their commander's headquarters for the remainder of the war until 1833. After the Americans' victory, Mary Morris was one of only 3 women accused of treason, and the mansion was seized along with their other properties. The house went through a period of vacancy for more than 20 years, becoming a tavern at one point. President George Washington also revisited the house during this era and hosted a dinner for the first presidential cabinet at the mansion in July of 1790. 20 years after that founding father celebrity dinner, the house was purchased by French wine merchant Stephen Jumel and his wife Eliza Jumel, who were at the time considered new money by New York's old established high society. Stephen Jumel died in 1832, a little over a year later. And a little over a year later, the business-savvy widow married the former Vice President Aaron Burr in the parlor of the mansion. Notorious for killing Alexander Hamilton in a duel, Burr married Eliza for her wealth, while she married him for his social status. Eliza quickly recognized that Burr was squandering her savings, and after just 4 months of marriage, filed for divorce from the former vice president. Eliza was the longest living resident of the mansion, and after her death in 1865, control over the house and the estate was contested in court for almost 20 years. The mansion became a museum in 1904, and today the 255-year-old house features restored period rooms from both the Morris and Jumel eras. We offer exciting public programs that expand the scope of a traditional historic house museum. Now, let's zoom in on one of my favorite elements of the museum, our collection of 18th and 19th century transformers. But I don't mean Optimus Prime. I'm talking about multi-purpose furniture. Today's iterations of multi-purpose furniture, transformers like sofa beds, Murphy beds, and coffee tables that also double as refrigerators and phone charging stations may seem novel to us, but in fact, multi-purpose furniture has been around for centuries. So before we go any further, I just want to let you all know that I'm a native New Yorker, so I fully appreciate the need for space-saving furniture in a cramped city. Please share with us where you're tuning in from and where you're joining us from. And if you have any furniture in your personal collection that you use for a variety of purposes other than their intended use. So this advertisement for a portable convertible furniture from 1805 proves that the convertible bed is not such a modern invention after all. The art of metamorphic furniture making was refined and popularized in the mid-18th century as a space-saving measure to divide up large rooms into smaller, specialized spaces. Seamlessly blending style, form, and mechanically assisted functionality, metamorphic furniture captured the interest of both the well-established wealthy landowning families, as well as the members of the rising merchant class. Due to the eagerness to furnish their homes with expensive objects of the highest quality, both for their versatile functionality as well as a means to display their wealth and taste, the desire for these novelty items increased, as did the competition between cabinet makers. During the first decade of the 19th century, just before Eliza and Stephen Jumel purchased the mansion, a combination of neoclassical design motifs, military-inspired furniture innovations, as the wealthy British officers wanted to enjoy the same standard of lavish living while on campaign as they would have at home, as well as intense competition between cabinet makers, drove innovations in furniture technology even further, leading to several new mechanical and metamorphic furniture designs, similar to modern-day competition between tech giants like Apple and Google. Each was rushing to roll out the latest upgrade and innovation. So let's zoom in on some of these metamorphic designs in the Morris-Jumel Mansion's collection of 18th and 19th century furniture by starting out with something fun. This simple looking side table actually has a secret. It converts into a card table. One leaf folds over, revealing an inlaid compartment for storing cards and other card playing or gambling accessories. So what comes to mind, please go ahead and share in the chat, what comes to mind when you think of a card table today? So card tables like this one were made of walnut, card tables were made of walnut, or like this one, mahogany. And it would have two hinged leaf tops that when open would reveal an inner surface lined with leather, felt, or a coarse woolen cloth called baize. The Industrial Revolution brought an influx of people moving from rural areas to urban city centers. Along with this geographical and population shift came changes in economic status for the middle class, as well as an increase in leisure time. Americans and Europeans furnished their homes to reflect that, and a card table was deemed almost essential for households aspiring to the fashionable middle class way of life. Card tables were generally used by men for gambling, but could also be used as small tables for tea and conversation. 19th century author Jane Austen depicts young women swapping secrets over card tables in her novel Sense and Sensibility. One can only guess at the gossip shared over this particular table or over other card tables within the walls of the mansion. Even the most upstanding founding fathers enjoyed gambling. George Washington's account books, for example, revealed that he was quite a card player, and Thomas Jefferson was involved in a card game just 2 days before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So Megan, do we have any questions or interesting comments in the chat so far?
Let me unmute myself. We have a variety of people responding. Most are local. We've got Angela also from New Jersey, and we've got people like Louise in San Diego, California. She shared that they have a French military desk that transforms into a piano. So Louise, if you can hear us, we would all love to see a picture of that if you are able to share. Got someone, Abby from Kansas City, Jennifer from San Francisco, also was saying how they've repurposed a Japanese cabinet design for swords, using it in their kitchen.
Ooh.
And then lastly, we have David, who looks like he is a contemporary cabinet maker. And he said, I have a bench / table as a hutch table that I made.
Very interesting. Thank you all so much for sharing. Okay. So now let's head into the room that our first president used as his office while he was headquartered at the House in 1776, where our transforming architect's desk or artist desk is currently on display. Believe it or not, standing desks are not a 21st century innovation. This unusual mahogany table was specifically conceived for drawing. The adjustable top lifts up and can be tilted to an angle desired by the user, who might be adjusting for height or lighting purposes. While some versions of architect's desks were really plain, with just a flat piece of wood attached to a base and a pivoting hinge, some more beautiful examples, like this one, exalted the craft of cabinet making, utilizing exotic hardwoods and veneers, while featuring retractable work surfaces, as well as slots for drawers and storage. This architect's desk holds special significance to the museum. British Colonel Roger Morris, who was the original owner of the house, came from a family of architects in England, which was very likely a factor in the inclusion of the octagon room in the original blueprints. Fittingly, this desk is currently on display in the war room just above the octagon room. And here's another angle of the architect's desk when it was on display in another setting, just so you can see the contrast when the piece is fully lowered. But the architect's desk is just one of many unique desks that belongs to the Morris-Jumel collection. For our next transformer, we're stepping into the William Chase room, which is interpreted to represent a mid-19th century children's bedroom. One of the most eye-catching features of this room is the Metamorphic table desk chair, which shows off the ingenuity and craftsmanship of the master cabinet makers of the time. So this unique combination of work, this unique combination is the work of Stephen Hedges, who patented the design in 1854. The desk was described by Hedges as a new and useful piece of furniture intended to serve as table alone or as a chair and table combined. So entirely closed up, Hedges' innovative design looks like an unsuspecting table on wheels. But when flipped open, the hinged two-leaf top reveals a seat which swivels open on the wheels to reveal a hidden drawer and compartment. Okay, so question for you all. Do we have any antiquers in the audience, or our cabinet maker, our modern cabinet maker might know the answer to this? Does anybody have any inkling what this desk is commonly referred to as? Megan, you're muted.
Okay, so Ruth is suggesting a writing desk.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments in the chat?
Okay.
No, I think we've stumped some of our audience members.
So this is actually referred to as the Aaron Burr desk. Thanks to an illustrated example of one of these desks that was published in a 1911 article in the New York Herald, stating, "Here is the quaint old desk on which Aaron Burr penned his love to Madame Jumel." Well, not only did this article improperly state that it had belonged to Aaron Burr, but it also implied that its small size had been specifically designed to accommodate his short stature. However, the design was patented 18 years after Burr's death, but the desk became forever known as the Aaron Burr desk. The Bartel-Pelham Manor, which is another historic house in the New York City Historic House grouping, does in fact have a desk on display, which he may have penned his love, or rather his charm, to Madame Jumel, dated about 1833. Burr would have owned this desk for the last few years of his life, including his marriage to Eliza Jumel. The Morris-Jumel collection also has one of Burr's desks on display in the Aaron Burr bedchamber. His transformer is featured in this photo, but you may not be able to spot it right away, although I really hope you can spot a certain card table in this room. When closed, the secrétaire à la bande, or drop leaf desk, disguises itself as a fine piece of case furniture with beautiful mahogany veneer and brass mounting. However, the flat panel drops down to create a flat writing surface, revealing hidden niches for storage and organization. The design of the desk would have been particularly useful for Burr, who was a lawyer, to keep both his professional and personal affairs in order, as it can be quickly folded up and locked to protect sensitive documents from clients and perhaps wives. So one of the reasons that I love that piece so much is that I actually have a modern version of a secretary that I use to keep my own affairs in order. Also mahogany, my secretary features 5 drawers.
And Meg, can you tilt that? Perfect.
My secretary features 5 drawers. It does lock, but I don't have the key. And not only does it feature pretty obvious storage over here, it also features a little bit more subtle storage, including what looks like decorative ornate pieces that actually open up to store my checkbooks. So now that we've gone over all of the Morris-Jumel Mansion's pieces of transforming furniture, we would love to hear from our audience. If you have any transforming furniture in your house.
Okay, so we still have the chat box open, and let's see if I can either unmute you, or if you wish to contribute, you can also hit the space bar to unmute yourself. Okay, let's see. I'm going to, there we go. So I don't know if this technically counts as transformer furniture, but I do have a space-saving item from IKEA, Meg. We tend to use it as the coffee table, but it actually opens up for storage. And we can also use it to be sort of an impromptu laptop desk as well, because when you lift it open, it raises up. So it's a good height for typing.
Yeah, so I actually live in a studio apartment, so this really compact dual purpose secretary is incredibly helpful for me. But there are plenty of people who actually don't have multi-purpose furniture, but use them for different purposes. I know plenty of people who use bookshelves as room dividers and other things like that. So even if you don't have some metamorphic furniture, we see Anne saying that she has an old narrow library table that opens to a wide dining table.
Ah, yes. Oh, and a lingerie closet with a secret jewelry compartment on the side. I love those secret compartments.
Mm-hmm. So does anybody else have anything else that they would like to share? Any other unique pieces of furniture or observations?
The only thing that I have is I have a, some people call it a bench table or a hutch table, which is over there.
Yes.
It looks like a bench, or actually looks like a table, but the top opens up and looks like a bench. So you can either have it as a bench or you can have it as a table.
Mm-hmm.
Normally I have it as a table. I should do it as a bench so I don't pile stuff up on it.
That is the hazard.
Linda commented that the desk chair seems useful, and she's surprised it's not produced today. In my research, I actually came across an article describing how uncomfortable that chair was to sit in. So that article suggested that there's a pretty good reason why these aren't produced today. They were pretty uncomfortable.
So it was more a form first. Well, there's a functional aspect, I guess. But
I think that sort of rings true today. I mean, I think anyone who's slept on a sofa bed knows that they are not quite as comfortable as a real bed. And even when they're folded up as a sofa, they're not quite as comfortable as a sofa. So I think there are times where you can lose elements of each item when you combine them together. But in cities and small spaces, this is a really important thing.
So Abby is sharing in the chat that her dining table expands to seat 12. So that must be a table that has additional leaves, or is it a dropped leaf maybe where it folds down over the side?
Abby, do you want to share? Maybe not.
Let's see.
Vanessa also said that her mother had a convertible. Abby just
had leaves. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Anne has a question. Does Burr's secretary require one to stand when using it as a desk? Great question.
It does. So this modern iteration behind me is a smaller, more reduced version, but the original secretaries would have been were about standing height. He could have potentially sat at the desk, but you would have needed a metamorphic chair in order to sit there, in order to reach that level.
Okay, so it looks like Vanessa has a comment. Let's see. All right, I've asked her to unmute. Is there something that I'm missing?
Oh, I apologize. I think I just pressed the wrong thing.
Oh, okay.
I just had the comments about the convertible. You know, it was a wooden table, and so it had the sewing machine, and you could like flip it, and it would just become a small table. So.
Yeah, no, that is a great and more familiar example where you can, again, maximize that space when you're not sewing, when you're not using the sewing machine. Adorable picture, by the way, too.
Thank you.
So let's see. So Anne has, well, we've got a few more comments here in the chat. So Ruth was asking if anyone had exposure to apartments that can convert walls and areas, that she saw some reviewed in New York City and Hong Kong. They take transforming to the extreme. Yes, where space is at a premium. I think I've seen some examples in Japan, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have a convertible wall. I just have a bookshelf standing in place of a convertible wall.
So, and then Anne is asking, she says, or she's asking, are drop leaf and tilt and turn tables considered metamorphic? Or do they have to be usable both ways? That is a great question.
That's a great question. So the term metamorphic, essentially meta meaning change in form. So metamorphic, I would say that they could be considered metamorphic because you are extending the size and the purpose of the piece of furniture. I would say that they are. Other historians may correct me on that, so I can look into that a little bit more and get back to her. But I would say so. You know, if we're changing the shape and the form of the original piece, then that's metamorphic.
Okay, another question here, this time from Linda. Are there records of most of the original furniture in the mansion?
That sounds like a question for you, Megan.
I think a better person to answer that question would be our executive director, Shiloh Holly, who is on this call. So Shiloh.
Welcome, Shiloh.
Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, we do have provenance trace for most of our pieces in our collection. The bulk of the information actually comes from from two different auctions when the Jumel pieces were sold off. One was in the late 1880s, and that was done after Eliza Jumel's death, and then the other one was in the early 1900s. So we have those original auction catalogs, which provides really invaluable information about most of our the core pieces in our collections.
Great. Thank you, Shiloh.
Thank you, Shiloh.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts, or comments before we conclude? All right. So Meg, if you could maybe bring the PowerPoint back up. If any of you wish to continue the conversation, we've got a variety of social media platforms that you can use. And for those of you who also have metamorphic pieces in your collection, feel free to take pictures of those and share them via Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And then if you can advance to the next slide.
I think that's actually it.
Okay, so then I will happily invite all of you, if you enjoyed this lunch break lecture, to come and join us next week, where our MJM educator Daniela is going to share more about the outdoors surrounding the mansion, focusing in on some of our heritage roses that are located in Roger Morris Park, again, part of that original land owning, as well as looking at other community gardens around Washington Heights. So again, it'll be the same time, same place, next Monday. Any final words, Meg?
I just want to say thank you all for joining us. I see some familiar faces here who I know have been to the museum, and some other people who I know have not. So I'm so glad that you all joined us today for this riveting conversation. You were a part of it. And we look forward to seeing you at future virtual events, and hopefully in person sometime soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Meg. You did fantastic. And thank you, everyone. And I will be following up with you with some additional resources to learn more about this topic. Thank you.